Good evening, Pilipinas. Good evening, mga kababayan. Welcome to another edition of INQ Live. For tonight, I'm your host, Chito de la Vega. I'm with the Inquirer Libre, the Inquirer Central Desk, and DZIQ Radio. For tonight, ang guest natin is a former Justice Secretary and now running under the senatorial slate under the banner of Daang Matuwid.
Liberal Party and
Liberal
Amatuwi.
Party. We have former Justice Secretary Leila de Lima. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Mike. Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here at INQ Live.
Yes, ma'am. Para sa kabatiran ng mga tao, this program is being broadcast live on Facebook, on YouTube, and the INQUIRER.net website. We will also be having live updates on Twitter, the Inquirer Twitter account, and also the other accounts of the Inquirer Group. And for those who want to ask questions, pwede ho habang live kami, you can ask us dun sa accounts ng Inquirer on the following chat apps, on FireChat, on Kakao, Line, Viber, and WeChat. Wag na ho natin patagalin. I'll just ask muna, ma'am, how does it feel to be on the campaign trail? And what do you miss most during sa buhay nyo?
Okay, thankfully, I'm still here. I'm still up and about. Hindi naman ako talaga nagkakasakit. Mga paminsan-minsan ng sakit ng ulo and sometimes bout of my vertigo because I have vertigo, but that's normal for me. It's very exhausting, physically stressful, but on the whole, it's very enriching and i-enjoy ko naman. At yung attitude ko talaga, ini-enjoy ko na lang lahat.
Meron ba kayong, I know it's still a few weeks pa, pero is there some learnings na napulot nyo along the way dito sa campaign trail?
Well, ang nakikita ko, you just have to really be yourself. You just have to really just project a sense of sincerity to the voters, especially in the provinces. Mas natutuwa sila kapag nakikita ka talaga in person. They appreciate it. And you can feel their sincerity. You know, genuine appreciation of your
Tunay
presence.
na Pilipino na nasa.
Tunay na Pilipino. Sabi nga nila, the name of the game now is, air war. Pero para sa akin, given the Filipino psyche, culture, no substitute for personal touch. Iba. But of course, it's simply impossible for us to reach everyone, to reach every place. So, pinal-maximize na lang ang exposure. Yun ang nakikita ko. You just have to be yourself.
Well, itong tanong na to, first let's fire off kagad. Sabi nga natin, guns a-blazing. This question was, parang umaga pa lang binigay na sa... nga pala ma'am, before I forget, most of our questions came from social media. So, umaga pa lang nakuha na namin yung tanong na to. You've heard about this controversy about a candidate talking about the rape issue and particularly the mayor of Davao, si Mayor Rodrigo Duterte. I would like to know what are your views on his statements and your reactions?
Well, first of all, it's classic Duterte and classic in its brazen and its utter depravity. Now, but hindi ko maintindihan saan nanggagaling yung accolades, saan nanggagaling yung jeering for this kind of a hate speech. It is a hate speech. Of course, may standards.
Even if he called it a joke?
It's not a joke. How can it be ever a joke? It is a hate speech. Anyone who enjoys talking about rape victims is actually indulged in hate speech. Hate for women, hate for victims of rape. So how can we ever tolerate that? Pero sabi ko nga, well, he says that he is apologizing. Although ang sabi niya, he is apologizing in general. I don't know exactly what that means, a public apology in general, and how sincere he is. I don't think he sounds sincere because he has, sinasabi niya na what understand the context of that joke. There's a story behind that joke. The story is still rape, no matter how you look at it. So rape and condoning rape is never acceptable
In whatever form.
in whatever form.
We just received a story kanina, and that he was not the one who issued the statement daw. So he which is in effect, he said na if I understood it right, meron daw sumulat para sa kanya na, but he did not authorize it, which doesn't improve the thing, the situation ngayon.
Well, rightly so, marami naman talaga ang up in arms against that. Women's advocates, all sectors, even foreigners. There are ambassadors who have spoken about it. But going back to, well, number one siya ngayon sa mga surveys. Where is that coming from? It's extremely frightening and it's disturbing.
Well, at least because we'll see in the next few days
Kung anong
how will this
epekto.
affect. Opo. Well, I have a few questions here from some of the reporters who covered you during your time sa DOJ. One is asking, I don't know if it's before you resigned, what was the status of the NBI investigation on the Davao death squads?
The DDS.
Yes, the DDS.
Well, it was ongoing because there was a self-confessed hitman who executed an affidavit, but it is subject to validation, subject to the gathering of supporting evidence, particularly testimonial evidence. So that's the status. The NBI team, it was a special team that I created to validate the story of that self-confessed hitman whom we placed under WPP.
So there was a
nasa-
witness pala who came forward for the death on.
Yes, a self-confessed hitman.
Mm-mm.
Under WPP na siya. So his allegations are being validated or verified by the NBI special team. And my guidance to NBI is that once they get enough corroborative evidence in support of the story of that self-confessed hitman, then they can file the proper charges.
One question here that I received from another reporter was, do you wish you could have done more as Justice Secretary during your time? Do you wish
Oh yes.
para mga 10 beats ba o ano ba?
Kulang na kulang naman talaga yung more than 5 years ng aking panunungkulan as DOJ Secretary. Alam ko na marami akong nagawa, pero alam ko rin na marami pa rin akong
Gagawin.
hindi nagawa at dapat gawin. Because as it's always a thankless job, public service. There are successes, there are failures, there are ups and downs, but generally fulfilling. Now, I know that given the things that I have done, internal reforms, and also the high-profile investigations, I have more or less transformed the DOJ into a respected and trusted institution. Although kulang pa, ang pinakauna ko ngang accomplishment was doing away with the filing fees, the payment of filing fees of the complainant. Kasi nakita ko nga bakit yung pababayaran yung mga naagrabyado o mga nabiktima, pababayaran nyo pa. So I did away with that. And then mga
No more filing fees regardless of status, kahit mayaman na mahirap? Ganun
Yes,
yan?
no filing fees because these are criminal cases, and regardless of whether it's a minor or a major offense, why pay filing fees at the level of the DOJ, at the level of the preliminary investigation, and then internal reforms, the code of conduct for the prosecutors, the creation of the internal affairs unit I have authorized the entrapment of certain corrupt prosecutors, which led to the filing of cases before the ombudsman. May dalawa o tatlo na sa kanila na dinismiss na ng ombudsman. Pina-entrap ko mismo sa NBI. And I was even telling myself that I don't mind authorizing entrapment every week and suffering the embarrassment for the DOJ as an institution. And I wouldn't stop doing that until I catch the last corrupt prosecutor. Although I'd like to believe na karamihan naman ay matitino. Siyempre may mga rotten eggs. And then special initiatives, creation of the Office for Competition, Cybercrime Office, the interagency committee, high-level interagency committee on extrajudicial killings and forced disappearance, torture, and other grave human rights violation. The creation of multi-agency body to address illegal mining and illegal logging, and of course the accomplishments in our fight against human trafficking. There has been a surge of convictions. The number of convictions in human trafficking cases really increased significantly from 2010, when I was the chair of the Interagency Council Against Trafficking. That's why we're able to maintain the Tier 2 ranking nung sa the U.S. State Department.
Before you came, walang special committee on the human trafficking?
No, there is an IACAT, Interagency Council Against Trafficking, mandated by law. It's in the law, but before 2010, medyo hindi masyadong nag-perform yung IACAT. So during our time, we have had very proactive handling of human trafficking cases.
You mentioned about human rights. You yourself were a member, was the chaired the Commission on Human Rights. And from what you've heard or what you learned about what happened in Kidapawan, what can you give us your view on that? What happened there from the standpoint of if you were CHR?
Well, what happened in Kidapawan actually shows that the local government and the police miscalculated the scale of the mass action. And because under existing protocols, dapat yung mga riot policemen o yung mga civil disturbance unit ang sumasabak dyan. And these are supposed to be unarmed but fully secured. They have to be fully secured. They have to be fully prepared in order to also display or exhibit maximum tolerance. But since they were ill-prepared and possibly not adequately trained of handling situations like that, siguro yung mga civil disturbance units natin sa NCR, syempre mas preparado yan compared to those out there
Nakita ko pa nga parang mas magaganda pang gamit dito.
in Cotabato. Kasi dapat fully secured sila but unarmed. And yung armed component, naka-standby lang dapat sila. If I'm not mistaken, sa batas dapat 100 meters away from the scene.
There's actually law on that protocol.
There is such a protocol. Papasok lang yung mga armadong component if the situation calls for it. Now, the protesting farmers, based on the reports, were actually unarmed. So why the use of an armed component at that stage? But anyway, the focus should really be on the thorough investigation of what really happened, the root cause of the mass action. In the end, we all have to realize that the protesting farmers were simply airing legitimate grievances. But the response, na-miscalculate talaga because these are what, 5,000 or 6,000 protesters. Now, maximum tolerance was supposed to be the policy. Now, what happened was something that was spontaneous. So there cannot be conspiracy. Now that brings us to itong mga kaso filed against farmers, 70 plus
Yes.
na mga farmers, including elderly, including women. Well, of course, the PNP has the right to file charges against those they think are responsible for the critical injuries sustained by two policemen. Pero dapat in-identify lang, ang kasuhan lang, yung mga truly identified to be responsible for that. Kasi wala namang naging conspiracy dyan because spontaneous na. That's why I think the prosecutors now should start really looking or reviewing seriously the evidence against any of those na mga kinasuhan, na mga na-inquest, and they should start withdrawing the cases against those na wala naman talaga ebidensya. Kasi why focus on prosecuting the protesters, the rallies? There is such a thing as prosecutorial discretion. Mas maganda sana kung yung PNP, as the complainant, files an affidavit of desistance para i-withdraw na ng mga prosecutors.
Kasi nga mayroong mga elderly pa hong napasama dun sa ano. Let's just go to ngayon Leila de Lima, the candidate. If you make it to the Senate, what would be your priorities? What would be your pet? How would you like to be identified?
Given my exposure, given the job that I handled as CHR, DOJ, I will focus on justice, rule of law, anti-corruption, and championing human rights. And sa justice naman, I will focus on legislative proposals that would update, that would simplify our 83-year-old penal code. Marami ng mga antiquated provisions dyan, hindi na masyadong angkop sa times natin. There are lots of developments. There are new kinds or new phases of crimes. And also in terms of tightening up the process of criminal investigation, the need for more collaboration between investigators on one hand and the prosecutors on the other hand, para kung nasasampa na yung kaso sa korte, mas higher ang success rate. And of course, I'm going to introduce legislative measures that would decisively trace, restrain, and confiscate proceeds or assets that are proceeds of serious organized or economic crimes. I'm thinking of a Philippine version of the Proceeds of Crime Act, which exists in certain jurisdictions in Europe,
Yes.
England, and other countries in
How does
Europe.
that work, ma'am?
That law contains measures or legal mechanisms by which to isolate criminals, especially members of big criminal enterprises, syndicates, from their loot, from the proceeds of their crime. Now, I'm thinking of coming up with the right process na we don't have to wait for the conviction of the accused in these criminal cases. I'm looking at serious organized crimes, drug trafficking, human trafficking, child trafficking, kidnap for ransom, KFR, investment scammers, smugglers, and of course money launderers. Na kasi alam mo nung nag-grade kami sa Bilibid, hindi lang yung mga jacuzzi yung mga nakita namin doon. Meron din
Kayo
kami.
nagpa-umpisa nun, nung read na yun.
Yes. May mga nakita rin kaming mga passbook na mga meron talaga silang mga assets sa bangko.
Kahit convicted na sila. Meron pa rin sila account.
Because they were still transacting while inside the prison. And I think hindi lang in cash, they have non-cash assets, commercial assets, non-commercial assets. Maybe in mga artwork, maybe in jewelries, maybe in real properties. Now, how do we promptly and decisively search and trace for the assets of these big criminal syndicates? And when found, how do we promptly restrain, freeze them, and then later confiscate them? Because these are proceeds of criminal acts. Siyempre, meron tayong AMLAC, but this deals, of course, mainly and primarily with yung mga assets sa banking institutions. But what about other assets?
That will be crossing some of the bank secrecy, so-called bank secrecy laws.
Kailangan naman talaga natin na i-review na yung bank secrecy law natin eh. I-liberalize na natin yan. Lalo na sa usapin ng korupsyon or anti-corruption. Para sa akin, dapat walang bank secrecy for public officials. And one way of liberalizing also is to expand the list of exceptions. The rule, of course, the general rule is non-disclosure of bank deposits. Fine. And this is to protect clean, honest depositors. Pero ano nangyayari? Nagiging shield na. Nagiging, I would call it a dinosaur already, protecting yung mga may tinatago na mga kalokohan, corrupt people, criminal syndicates. So in terms of our anti-corruption campaign, I think we should look into lifting altogether the law insofar as public officials are concerned, especially those under investigation, whether by the BIR, whether by the DOJ, and especially by the Ombudsman.
I think it's going to be a tough road. Especially yung, I keep hearing it ngayon, yung government officials dapat hindi covered ng ano, but you're with government, you've been with don't you think that's going to be a really tough fight if case you...
It is, pero kailangan gawin na yan. If we are really, because, well, the Pinoy administration has been really serious in its anti-corruption campaign, and we have to undertake a renewed offensive, and one way is addressing loopholes in the law, strengthening laws.
Any other platforms pa na tingin yung, since you've gone to the provinces, met some people, also those that will help, aside from anti-corruption,
Yeah, yung sa social justice kasi siyempre, kasi human rights nga. Diba? And it's not just about criminal justice, yung advocacy for justice and rule of law, but also for social justice. Those who have less in life must have more in law. So we have to strengthen the protection of the law dun sa mga vulnerable sectors. Now, lalo na sa agricultural sector, sa mga magsasaka. Just like I think several other candidates would want this, na free education dapat sa mga anak ng mga poor farmers. Free education. Now, our farmers are getting old. Hardly anyone, any young guy would want to engage in agriculture. Hindi sila nakakatulong sa kanilang mga magulang. But marami hindi nakakapag-aral dahil sa kahirapan. Now, so we provide...
You've seen this during your campaign.
Yeah, I've been interacting with farmers groups. And gustong-gusto nila yan na bigyan ng free education ang mga anak nila. It's not just a matter of giving scholarships to deserving students, the top 5, top 10. Dapat free sa lahat na gustong mag-aral pero hindi kayang ipagpaaral ng kanilang mga magulang. Nandyan naman yung mga SUCs. Nandyan yung mga courses. Nandyan yung mga mga teachers, mga educators. And why so, and then the enrollment in this SUCs, especially mga agricultural colleges, are quite low.
I mean, they can still accommodate pa mga
They can. So they have to accommodate. So let's provide free education, not necessarily sa agriculture mismo, even yung mga agriculture-related courses like food technology.
You're thinking of agricultural courses pala. or not just
Mainly agriculture courses para because nga we have to boost the interest of
Totoo.
yung mga anak nitong mga farmers.
Baga parang may kabuhayan pa rin kung magsasaka kayo. Does that mean that you're just another farmer? But tama. Kasi I can see it also in the provinces. Talagang may edad na yung mga nagsasaka. Yung mga bata, they take another course. Are you also thinking along the lines of encouraging them to study agriculture? Parang ganun ang bang nyo? Along that line ba yung naiisip nyo yung
Yeah, because agriculture is still pretty much a main backbone of our society, of our economy, and we need to really support more, give more budgetary support, resources to the agricultural sector. Now, lalo na itong ang ASEAN economic integration. Now there would be losers and there would be winners, and among the losers, expectedly, would be the farmers groups. So we need to put in the safety nets for the farmers, especially the rice farmers.
Since you mentioned the ASEAN integration, will we be also looking at this as a senator if we can enter the Senate?
Yes.
What do you plan?
We have commitments already. We have made our commitments to that. We have to prepare for that. And I think relatively there are areas that naka-prepared tayo, ready for competition, but there are areas na hindi pa tayo ready. And as I said, yung agricultural sector, the rice farmers, they have to compete with their counterparts na hindi nila kaya yan. So kailangan tulungan, kailangan malagay yung mga proper safety nets like agricultural subsidies, tax incentives, crop insurance, yung mga ganun.
Can the government afford this? I mean, you're with the government. Yung mga ganyang is it realistic to the way you say it? Parang ganyan.
Yes. Well, it is a matter of availability and adequacy of resources, priorities in the allocation of resources. Education remains or ought to remain as top priority. And of course, our security, internal and external security, and then agriculture should be a top priority, especially in light of the effects of climate change, El Nino. Itong nangyayari nga ngayon, the government is expected to be really be prepared for the El Nino. Now, itong nangyari sa Kidapawan. Now, I think there's a problem here of the distribution of aid. Is the aid from either the national or the local reaching those areas fast enough? Tingnan din dapat yun. Kasi kung if you listen to the protesting farmers, hindi naman nila natanggap yun. But if you listen to the local government, to the governor, meron naman daw sila na mga binigay. So, saan yung diferensya?
It seems that climate change does not only affect, it also, after the Kidapawan incident, it also affects yung social, kasi naging source ng social unrest din pala ang climate change. So, would you also, what are your views on climate, alleviating mga ganitong problems?
Well, it's the reality now, no? Now, ang tingin ko diyan, kailangan lang natin i-capacitate ng husto yung LGB units for disaster preparedness response. Of course, we can always put in the right resources, budgetary allocation for climate adaptation, climate mitigation. Now, I leave it to the experts to to determine alin dapat ang mas ano dyan, mitigation or adaptation. But for me, since it strikes everywhere in the Philippines, we need to capacitate the LGUs and also make sure that the coordination mechanism ng local and national ay dapat seamless. Kasi itong mga kalamidad, itong mga bagyo, itong mga earthquakes, they know no territorial boundaries or even political boundaries. So, syempre, a local area is the first to be hit. The first responders also are the first to be hit. So, the national crisis team should at all times be ready also to come to the aid of the LGU first responders. Yung dapat palakasin pa yung
Marami pang
mechanisms.
kulang sa tingin niyo?
Marami pang kulang siguro.
Here in the campaign, you've also, anong mga gut issues, nakakausap niyo yung mga tao sa ground? Anong mga parang concern na nakukuha niyo, na-receive niyo? Anong mga tingin yung kaya niyong ma-solve? Yung mga ganong issues na napupulot niyo.
Criminality.
Yan.
Yung poverty is still a top concern. Criminality and peace and order sa droga. And kaya nga itong ating presidential ball, I think that's part of the reason kung bakit hit siya.
Yung messaging niya. No?
Yung messaging niya, yun ang tumatatak sa mga pangkaraniwang tao. Yung kriminalidad, they want something revolutionary to address criminality na sa tingin ko hindi naman pwede na hindi susunod sa batas o sa proseso ng batas. So yan ang mga madalas, and then local politics, local concerns. That's it, criminality and poverty. Yan ang top concerns of various groups.
Yun talaga napupulsuhan nyo ngayon sa mga tao. Even in the provinces?
Yes.
Ganun din? Kala ko sa urban centers lang pala. Yung pala pati sa probinsya. In your...
Especially drug problem.
Alin
Because
po?
drug problem.
Drugs.
And of course, the need for more jobs, employment opportunities.
Does our joining the ASEAN, will it help us in sa jobs, or what do you feel about that?
Meron naman talagang mga areas na it will help, but meron din mga hindi. So that's why the need for more skilled workers and to be more competitive. Skilled workers. And then those formal education is still quite important in the profession, among the professional group. We can always compete in so far as professional groups are concerned.
Teka lang, meron tayong mga tanong pala from ito, nung araw merong phone-in question, ngayon merong WhatsApp questions tayo. Can you give me the, I haven't received it. We've been asking the public since this morning. Okay, ito. Talagang gusto lang daw niyang itanong, ma'am, mukhang tama yung analysis niyo sa kriminalidad yan. Gusto ko sanang itanong kung paanong paraan ng pagsugpo ng kriminalidad ang epektibo. Yung po, sang-ayon pa ba kayo rin sa sinasabi ni Duterte? Kung hindi, at bakit? Kung sangayon kayo, bakit? At kung hindi, bakit din?
Ang sinasabi ni Mayor Duterte is susugpuin niya ang kriminalidad in 3 to 6 months na imposible naman talaga. Although hindi pa niya sa atin sinasabi how exactly he will do it. Pero kung ibabase natin dun sa alam natin sa kanya, yung style niya, and I think you know kung anong ibig sabihin nun, which cannot be a no-no. It's a no-no yung ganong method. Now, sa tingin ko, kailangan lang talaga na i-improve yung kapasidad ng ating mga law enforcement agencies. Now, through technologies, through training of personnel, the right people, mga anti-crime computer database, magkaroon ng integrated database, lahat ng mga law enforcement agencies on the list of wanted criminals, the list of outstanding warrants of arrest, and then forensic trainings ating mga investigators, and then basic things like police visibility. In all.
Yan po mga sinasabi ninyo, kailangan lang parang implementation of the parang ganun ang basa ko ng so hindi 6 months yan, ma'am, pag
Imposible nga. Kaya nga, kailangan siguro tanungin talaga natin paano niya gagawin in 3 to 6 months. How? How in heaven's name can it be done to eradicate criminality, including drug-related criminality, in 3 to 6 months? It's a complete illusion.
A question came from Maria Asuncion on Facebook, and she's asking, what is the first bill that are you going to file as soon as you become a senator?
May pinagpipilian pa ako sa aking listahan na pinag-aaralan pa namin. Pero yung sinasabi ko, posible yung Philippine version ng POCA, the Proceeds of the Crime Act. Pwede rin yung isusulong ko lalo yung New Code of Crimes na nandyan na, sinabit na namin, pero hardly touched. And then yung Criminal Investigation Bill, nandyan na rin, pero nasa TWG level pa lang ata yan sa both Senate and House of Representatives. So, but it will be on the criminal justice system.
Would the improving the witness protection program be part of the agenda you're thinking?
There are pending bills already on that, strengthening the witness protection program. I'm all for that, including also the Whistleblowers Act. Konti na lang ng mga refinement yung mga pending bills with regard to those Whistleblowers Act and the WPP, the Witness Protection Program bill.
There was a question here asking, how does it feel that you, prior to joining government, were a top-notch election lawyer? Now you're on the other side, campaigning. How does that feel?
I never imagined to be at this stage. I never imagined that someday I would be really a candidate. I represented candidates, I represented politicians, but becoming politician myself was farthest from my mind. So, pero yung if you ask me if it would require a lot of adjustment in terms of my mindset and in terms of how I deal with people, hindi naman. Parang konti lang naman na adjustment because it's still about service. It's still about public service. It's still about advocacies.
One question here is, and I keep hearing this the question being asked sa ibang mga kandidato rin po is, what is your position, although it's being implemented na, no? Pero what's your position on the K-12 educational system?
I think it's needed. It's good, especially in terms of enhancing the quality of education. Kasi that is supposed to be a best practice among the best practices globally. And then the standards, medyo kulang bitin ata yung dati. You know, when you compare with some curricula standards globally, so it's worth trying, and let's see how it's implemented. The goal is improved quality of education.
And you're all for that, Chen?
I'm all for that.
Dali lang ho. Okay. Another one was asking, although we mentioned it na kanina about your, meron pa ba kayong gustong idagdag do sa mga platapormang naiisip ninyo as a, dito sa kandidato? Justice, and then agree, ano pa yung ano niyan?
Yung ano ko talaga is really on the side of how to hold people accountable faster. No, in the area of criminality and in the area of anti-corruption. Now, yung mga, for example, sa yung mga investment scams, I'm thinking of proposing a bill that would make investment scammers, kahit hindi sila, because right now, yung sa investment scams, para maging syndicated estafa, it would require at least 5 or more.
5 persons.
5 or more. At least 5 or more persons involved in duping people. And sometimes it's done, or most of the time, many times it's done through the internet. Kaya lang, may mga reports ngayon, may mga reklamo ngayon na even mga just 1 or 2, a couple, o mga mag-asawa, sila yung mga engaged in that, then we can also make it a syndicated estafa, even if it's less than 5 persons ang involved, para to make it a non-bailable offense. Kasi kung hindi siya syndicated estafa, hindi siya magiging ano lang siya, ordinary or simple estafa, and therefore non-bailable.
Before we
bailable.
Before we go to a break, I have a question, and this question is coming from from Mindanao rin. Ang tanong nila, bakit ho ba hindi nakasuhan si Mayor Duterte dun sa Davao Death Squads? Pero bago niyo sagutin yan, we'll pause for a few announcements muna. We'll be back for that.
For almost 2 decades, INQUIRER.net has been serving the Filipino people with the most up-to-date news stories, when it happens, where it happens. Today, we are redefining what it means to be a multimedia company by creating and distributing a variety of shareable and entertaining content that goes beyond just the headlines, covering the latest in pop culture, lifestyle trends, and technology. Straight to your screens wherever you are in the world. INQUIRER.net, still the most trusted name in news. For almost 2 decades, INQUIRER.net has been serving the Filipino people with the most up-to-date news stories, when it happens, where it happens. Today, we are redefining what it means to be a multimedia company by creating and distributing a variety of shareable and entertaining content that goes beyond just the headlines, covering the latest in pop culture, lifestyle trends, and technology. straight to your screens wherever you are in the world. INQUIRER.net, still the most trusted name in news.
Welcome back to INQ Live, and our guest tonight is former Justice Secretary, now senatorial candidate Leila de Lima. And before we left for the break, our question was, it came from mga taga Mindanao. Ang tanong nila bakit hindi nakasuhan si Davao Mayor Duterte dun sa so-called Davao Death Squads?
Hindi pa ko nakakasuhan. Well, inimbestigahan ho namin siya nung ako ay nasa CHR. We conducted public inquiries, open public inquiries. Pumunta pa kami sa Davao, and then pinasabina ko pa nga yan si Mayor Duterte, and then siguro hindi niya yun nakalimutan. May mga nakausap kami noon ng mga witnesses, pero ang problema namin noon ay walang gusto to really testify. So walang naging ebidensya, direct evidence against him. Pero meron mga kinasuhan sa ombudsman na mga certain policemen, but not including Mayor Duterte himself. That is why nung revive namin itong investigasyon sa NBI, dahil nga meron ng self-confessed hitman, ay kailangan lang nga kumalap ng mga corroborative evidence and hopefully ay witnesses na mas mapapalakas ang kaso. And pwede rin ba akong bumalik doon sa usapin ng yung rape na yan?
sige. Oo.
Kasi alam mo, it used to be that I was the lone voice in the wilderness. Maybe outside of certain human rights groups like Human Rights Watch, ako lang naman ng mga hasnon na talagang I took to task Mayor Duterte, lalo na sa issue ng summary killings sa DDS, na madalas niya akong insultuhin. And ganon din si Chair Eta Rosales. So ngayon, with itong nangyayari ngayon, now I'm glad that there are presidentiables also publicly expressing their disgust. So, sana noon pa ay mas marami na nagpakita ng disgusto dyan sa style na yan ni Mayor Duterte. Now, I'm just being consistent. Alam mo, may mga kaibigan nga ako na sinasabi nila, you should go slow. Now that you are a candidate, you should go slow in criticizing Mayor Duterte kasi baka mabawasan ka ng boto. You know, he has as the surveys would show, he has a big following. Sabi ko naman, how can I be inconsistent? I cannot be inconsistent just because I'm a candidate. I cannot swallow my principles. Nakikita ko mali. So I have to express my
Parang if I remember
outrage.
right pa nga even before the mayor was running, one of the conditions was he didn't want to be dahil nga nakikriticize ninyo, ayaw niyang parang on the same platform
I
kayo,
think
parang ganun.
some presidentiables were actually wooing him, either as a running mate or maybe part of the slate, etc. So at least now they realize.
You mentioned about yung mga ni Digong. You're also active in social media. How are you doing engaging the public on social media? How are you how do you find social media?
Meron din naman akong maliit na social media group. Meron din naman akong in charge ng social media. You know, I have a very lean and mean team na multitasking lahat. Lahat kasama sa committee, lahat kasama sa core group, yung political, yung comms group, yung operations, yung sortie, and then even sa social media. Ang rini-report sa akin ng aking social media person is that mula daw nagpakita ako ng human side. You know, I don't know if you've seen my latest TV ad.
Ang favorite ko sa TV ad niyo yung black and white na
Oh,
noir.
yun.
Noir.
Yeah. Marami naman nag-appreciate dun sa ad na yan. And then there's the second ad which shows the two aspects of my personality, the tough side and then the human side. Yung may I love you. Mula daw in-air yun, ay mas dumami daw yung nag-appreciate sa social media when they started knowing the other side, the human side, the other face of Leila de Lima, na hindi lang in the tough public image but also an ordinary woman, isang ina, isang lola, pusong ina.
Nabasa ko nga yun something about that you were mentioned by, I don't remember sinong candidate yun na ano raw.
And then netizens would want to know also the ordinary things that I engage in. Kaya sinasabi namin yung hilig ko sa luto, hilig ko sa mga aso, hilig ko sa pagkanta, hilig ko sa long distance
Parang naalala ko
driving.
nagba-volleyball pa kayo ma'am noon eh.
Yes,
Talaga naglalaro
hanggang
kayo
ngayon.
na? Hanggang ngayon?
Yes. Hanggang nung nasa DOJ ako, nagkasama ako sa volleyball team ng DOJ. So, netizens seem to appreciate that other side
That's right.
of Leila de Lima.
There was this one came from someone from Angeles City and I find it kayo na nung mag-judge kasi sabi niya why are you now quiet on the human right siguro this is how they see it. Why are you now quiet on the alleged human right violations of Mayor Duterte? Tapos what does your silence mean?
I'm never quiet when it comes to the human rights violations of Mayor Duterte. In fact, I'm always the first one to speak out. As I said, I used to be the lone voice in the wilderness, taking him to task. Sa DDS, and then every time he says something about, na ito pinatay ko o pinapatay ko, I promptly react. I'm never silent when it comes to Mayor Duterte's braggadoso. Mga ganyan. Kasi nga, I cannot stand anymore his sense of impunity. Whether he calls it as just his style, his ano lang daw niya yun, way of expressing things.
Parang naririnig ko parang ganun daw mag-usap sa probinsya or something like that. You've been to the provinces? Don't you agree with him?
I don't agree. There are limits, there are standards for public speech.
Actually, I have a question here on kasi I was supposed to reserve this last pero kasi na-mention yun eh. You've been how many years now with the government? You've been with private sector and
Almost 8 years.
Parang ngayon may choice na kayong umalis sa government. Parang what's the lure of serving the government? What does kasi you made na kayo as private
I really thought about it. Siyempre alam niyo naman na yung pagpasok ko sa gobyerno was sudden, unexpected. Hindi ko naman hiniling yon. Now I have about 8 years sa gobyerno, 2 years sa CHR, then DOJ. So when I was mulling over my candidacy, nung magdidesisyon ako kasi nahirapan naman talaga akong mag-decide whether it's a go for me.
Pinag-isipan niyo talagang
Pinag-isipan ko talaga. Now what were my options? My options then were first going back to private life or private practice or aiming for some permanent government position, like in the judiciary, applying again in the
Yes.
judiciary. I did that before for the Chief Justice, or run for public office. So napag-isipan ko na between judiciary and running for public office in the Senate, so mas nakita ko na I think I would be more effective and it would be more fulfilling for me if I go to the Senate in terms of continuing the advocacies. Kasi yung naging mission ko to deliver justice, to begin the process of delivering true and complete justice for all. That was the marching orders of the President during his June 30 inaugural address. Secretary de Lima, begin the process of delivering true and complete justice for all. I wasn't able to complete that mission. It's a long way to go to complete that mission, but I have only 6 years coterminous with the President. So how will I continue that mission in terms of needed legislation to address, to fill in the gaps, to fill in the deficiencies in the justice system? I've seen enough in the justice system.
So ngayon, tinatanong niya na mismo yung mga boss, tutuloy ko ba itong mission na to? Parang
Yes.
something like that.
Yes, something like that.
Oo.
Ganon naman talaga. Alam ko na mahirap, hindi madali ang magkandidato sa isang national position.
Yes.
Na lalo na wala naman akong resources, wala naman akong karanasan, wala naman akong political base. I'm a complete political neophyte. So let's see. It's either the people or the general public, by and large, have appreciated my work, both in the CHR or the DOJ, appreciated or not. And if they did appreciate my work, then they would understand that there's more work to do in terms of legislative measures.
There's a question here about the Napoles list, in which there were the names of 9 senators, and the question is why only 3 senators were charged before the Sandigan Bayan?
Alam niyo po, yung talagang naging assignment ng DOJ NBI ay yung mga nandun sa listahan ni Ben Horloy. Yun dun sa sangkot yung mga Napoles bogus NGOs. Diba? And yung pinaka-direction sa akin ng Pangulo, guidance sa akin ng Pangulo, is that only go where the evidence leads you. Kung ano lang yung sa tingin nyo ng mga kaso that would really stick, not only before the Ombudsman, but in the court, like in the Sandigan Bayan, yun ang isulong nyo. And ang problema is that parang inasa na sa amin lahat, inasa na sa DOJ, NBI, yung pag-imbestiga ng buong usapin ng PDAF scam. Kami ang nanguna dyan, kami ang nag-initiate, kami ang nag-umpisa dahil kami nga ang nakadiskubre. Because what turned out to be, well, what was supposed to be just an ordinary case of a rescue of a victim of illegal detention turned out to be much bigger, turned out to be the most explosive political scandal in recent years, na nagulat kami doon. Hindi namin alam na ganong kalaki yung matitisod namin. So, hanggat kinaya namin, sinimulan namin yung investigasyon, akala namin wala kaming mabubuo sa dami ng mga dapat tingnan na mga dokumento, sa dami ng mga dapat i-scrutinize dun sa mga aligasyon ni Ben Horloy, tsaka yung mga ibang whistleblowers. So, it was cracking my brains na paano ba namin ito mabubuo? Alin ba dapat dito? So Pero swinerte kami dahil nakabuo kami ng ilan-ilan. Meron kaming nabuo na 3 batches. And yung tungkol sa why zero in on 3 senators, yung 3 senador naman kasi, yun naman talaga yung pinakamalaki na mga nakakuha ng mga kickbacks and commissions based dun sa records ni Ben-Hur Loy. Now, pagkatapos nung initial na yan na trabaho ng DOJ NBI, pinagkasunduan naman po nung IAGC, nung interagency what does IAGC again stands for? Interagency Anti-Graft Council. That's Ombudsman, that's COA, that's DOJ, that's DBM, CSC. Pinagkasunduan na yun lamang na mga sa COA report noong 2007 to 2009 and yung involving the 10 bogus Napoles NGOs na covered ng personal knowledge ni Ben-Hur Loy and the other whistleblowers ang talagang trabahuhin ng NBI, which it did. Na yung iba pa, sakop na yon nung IAGC. So up to this very day, IAGC still doing it. Still scrutinizing those records. And also the Field Investigation Office of the Ombudsman. So hindi naman siguro na lahat inasa sa DOJ NBI. Kasi yun ang mga nabuo, yung 3 batches na yon. And karamihan naman nung mga sinampa namin sa Ombudsman, nakapasa sa Ombudsman. Ombudsman did not just take our word for it. They studied it also. They made an independent evaluation or assessment of the evidence. And then pinadaan nila sa preliminary investigation. So yung mga nandun ngayon sa Sandigan Bayan, yun ang mga nakapasa sa Ombudsman. So,
Ganun pala kadami ho yun.
marami talaga.
So that means, hindi pa tapos yan.
Hindi pa ho
Wala
yan
pa.
tapos. As far as I know, yung Ombudsman and COA continue to really gather evidence on the other lawmakers.
Okay, before we go to, meron lang ako a few light questions, then you'll have to say your final message, ma'am. No? May nakapagsabi sa akin na kung isa sa pelikula raw ang buhay nyo, ang napili nyo raw lumabas na Leila de Lima ay si Don Zulueta. Bakit nyo naman ngayon ba bago na ba isip nyo doon o talagang si Don Zulueta pa rin ang It sounds like a serious question, but you know.
Sana hindi ma-misunderstood ako no, it's not about about the beauty of Don Zulueta. She's a beautiful actress. It's sa tingin ko, she has the depth of an actress na pwede niya i-portray sa buhay yung masalimuot na buhay ni Leila de Lima. Yun na nga lang, syempre, kung may leading lady, kailangan may leading man. So, ang leading man dyan,
Okay,
si Richard Gomez.
Why am I not
Ang
surprised?
problema ko, sinong ipoportray ni Richard Gomez?
Yeah. May artista naman, wala pang script na,
No, although ang sinasabi ko nga, yung pwedeng maging title, either, may dalawa akong naisip, it's either The Lady Justice or that thing called Tadhana.
Part 2 na. Part 2.
Yun ang pwede bang movie title?
You have the floor. You have to say your pitch ngayon.
Well, thank you PDI for this opportunity na matanong niyo ako, masaad ko ang aking mga kaisipan, certain burning issues, and also to be able also to relate to the people kung ano yung mga pwedeng maasahan kay Leila de Lima. Now, I know that in my capacity both as CHR chair and DOJ secretary, I, I earned the trust of many people. And I'm banking on that trust. If they trusted me when I was with the CHR and I was with the DOJ, I'm sure that I have the same trust now that I'm undertaking this journey to the Senate. Yung Leila de Lima po na nakilala nyo, napalaban, walang inuurungan, lumalaban, matapang, always for what is true and just, ay yun din po ang Leila de Lima na pwede niyong maasahan kung papalarin siya na mapunta sa Senado. I'd like to be the new face and the new voice for justice and human rights in the Senate. And number 12 po sa balota, si Leila de Lima. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Secretary Leila de Lima. Maraming salamat, and this will conclude another session of INQ Live. We'd like to thank lahat ng taong nanood sa atin, nakinig sa atin sa social media, lahat ng mga nagbigay ng tanong. We hope that we have helped you in deciding sa sino mga boboto nyo, yung iboboto nyo ngayong nalalapit na halalan on May 9, yun. 20 days from now. Thank you and good night.